here in our studio John Carro, who's a veteran plaintiff's attorney. He's a plaintiff's attorney. You're a plaintiff's attorney. I think you're looking at it a little bit more objectively. Isn't that the big hurdle here? He might be able to prove negligence, but he cannot prove, it seems to me, or he's going to have a very difficult time proving that the killing of a human being is the natural and probable consequence of inviting two guests on a show, albeit you may have lied to one of those guests.
Absolutely. It is the heart of this case. It's the toughest part of this case. I don't expect any plaintiff's attorney to admit that. They'll admit it's difficult, but they're going to believe in their case. He obviously believes in this case. He's put a lot of work into this case. This is a well-prepared case. And, you know, he probably has a fighting chance in front of this jury. This case was not dismissed by the judge. This case is going to the jury on that issue. How he makes that link, I think, is difficult. But is it impossible? No.
I wrote this down. Feiger claims it is the embarrassment and humiliation of the television show that lied to him. But the defense will argue guilt over the sexual affair, allegedly, that they had hours after the show, or anger over being told by Scott Amador, perhaps, that he was HIV positive, may have been the cause. Does that pretty much summarize this case?
Well, I think if they rely on that only, that's a dangerous position to take. Because if the jury doesn't believe that that occurred, you're not left holding much else. For the defense to rely too much on what are basically, you know, not reliable statements of an affair or the HIV status, it provides a convenient sort of alibi, a reason, a motive for this killing. But it cannot be proved conclusively, and it's very sketchy at best. So I think their better approach is to attack the whole foreseeability on the whole. How could they ever have anticipated this? To put it all in that one situation could hurt them.
Yeah. Jeff Feiger said in his opening statement that the autopsy revealed the toxicological tests and some other blood tests proved that the victim, in this case, Scott Amador, was HIV negative. The defense takes a different view of those tests that were run. They say they are both negative and inconclusive. It really, though, John, doesn't matter whether or not in an examination post-mortem he tested HIV positive or negative. Rather, what's important is what he may have told Jonathan Schmitz, because we know that Scott Amador's roommate, in a reliable, spontaneous utterance when paramedics arrived on the scene of the shooting, he warned them, be careful, Scott has HIV.
Right. That's a very reliable statement. Whether it's true or not, I think you're onto something that perhaps people are thinking, and that is, why did the inexplicable happen? That's what goes to the reasonableness issue here, the foreseeability. It doesn't seem reasonable that this killing should have taken place. So when you hear about HIV, whether it was there or not, if Scott thought that that was an issue, or if he had just had an affair, had sex with him and found out that he may have been HIV, those are reasons to go out. It's not justifiable, but that would, in his mind, create the scenario where he might go and kill someone. So it is important in that regard.
There's one other factor I want to mention before we take a quick break. It is not just the mother of Scott Amador who is prepared to take the witness stand and say that, yes, in the hours before my son's death, I had a telephone call with him. In it, he said that he had a sexual affair with Jonathan Schmitz. Again, that may be the motivating factor and not the show. And that they, quote-unquote, did it. Now, in her deposition later on, she seemed to say, well, my son was a big kidder, so I don't really know if they, in fact, had a sexual affair. What if Scott Amador, before his death and after the taping of the show, telephoned somebody else he had befriended in the green room of that show, and during the course of that conversation on the telephone said, I had an affair with Jonathan Schmitz after the taping of the show. That would be corroborating evidence of the mother's statement, wouldn't it? And damning to the plaintiff.
Sure, it then becomes even more reliable. It's not just one particular instance. You might say something to your mother, she knows about your sexual identity, and you might kid with her about what happened. But here you're telling someone else. So it does, anytime you have someone back it up, it makes it more believable.
All right, I'm not just plucking it out of thin air. There is a witness that the defense wants to put on the witness stand who was a guest who claims he received that telephone call by Scott Amador shortly before his death. The judge has reserved his ruling on whether or not to allow that witness to testify. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.